The government says, Jim, that it wants to introduce plans to outlaw intimidation of election candidates as a way of halting and ending this coarsening and toxifying of public debate. That's one thing coming up. And that's coming at the same time as on Tuesday we mark the centenary of some women gaining the vote for the first time.
Some women and all men, I think, is what we're celebrating. Yeah. I find the idea of the government introducing a specific law against abuse of election candidates slightly worrying, actually. I spend most of my time at Buzzfeed on social media, watching the ebbs and flows of politics, chat on social media. It is a cesspit. It is an awful place. It is a place where no one sane would spend too much of their time, and it does do awful things to you and what you think about other people and all that. I don't see how prosecuting a random selection of people for being too abusive or being too rude towards people is going to help. We already have laws. If you're anti-Semitic, if you're abusive, if you do hate speech online, you can get prosecuted and you will get prosecuted. We've seen it. People have been sent to jail for abusing MPs already under existing laws. The idea of criminalising something rather than trying to deal with it in a different way seems like a quite unusual approach to me.
Do my panel think it will happen?
I think it's a good idea because or something that certainly should be looked at, because the level of abuse is something which is absolutely extraordinary these days. And all of this, I think, is concentrated particularly at the time of election campaigns. So I think it makes perfect sense to actually look at what's going on within an election campaign. And I know a lot of MPs, also particularly female MPs, have had extreme levels of abuse and threatening.
But do you think you can make this an issue for the law?
It could be, although I've got some sympathy with what was just mentioned, actually. I mean, I would say as well, this is not something that every candidate experiences, thankfully. And actually, if you look at the abuse directed, for example, at women, over half of it, if you look at Twitter, was directed at just one person, Diane Abbott. So this is something that picks up on racism as well as sexism.
It's gone
quite often when we look at who's doing the abuse, it's people who are not especially well themselves, who are basically on their own with a Twitter account, may not even be realising what they're doing. And while it hurts the individual who's receiving it, I'm not sure that it's, the solution is to lock them up.
Indeed, I'll be back at the same time next week. Until then, from all of us here at the Westminster Hour, have a good night.